It's now 14 minutes past 12, and I think it's fair to say the pandemic has taught us a lot about resilience. But would you know how to survive a zombie apocalypse? I think I'd be totally rubbish. I would. I'd be absolutely rubbish. I'd be in the cupboard under the stairs. Now, according to some research, Cambridge is your best bet to surviving because it's home to the most onshore wind farms and recycling centres in the UK, meaning that those looking to self-sustain are more likely to be successful in producing their own energy and reusing waste. Here in Derby, though, we apparently have much less chance of surviving one due to the city's moderate air quality and low volume of recycling centres. Seriously, there's research into things like this. Well, someone who knows all about how to survive one is Greg Rudman, who's the owner of events company Zombie Infection, which pre-COVID would hold zombie apocalypse events. Greg, hello.
Hi, how are you?
Do you know what? I'm good, thanks. And I'm fascinated to talk to you because pre-COVID, I had seen on nights out, this is obviously we're talking a long time ago, people running around the streets at night trying to survive a zombie apocalypse. Tell me about the zombie events you used to hold because they're fascinating.
Okay, well, where do we start? We place the general public in 2 to 3 hour immersive theatre experiences that place the guests in a point in time that involves an apocalyptic situation. And we place these guests in a number of locations across the UK, from York, up in York, Sheffield, Liverpool, Nottingham, on all the way down south in Somerset. And it's just 2 hours, and we just make them very, very real, hugely entertaining. Have been around for about 10 years now. People love it.
Yeah, I was going to say, why do people love it?
I get asked that question a lot. And I always sort of come back to one thing. I think it's overcoming fear. Well, our events are very, very real. So although it's a theatrical performance, we base all of our scenarios in real life type situations. So, what would really happen, ironically, right now, if there was a pandemic that hit the UK shores? What would actually happen? And then obviously if taking it that step further into zombies. But we always come back to, because it's very, very real, people like to test themselves. Could I survive 2 hours with a bunch of strangers in a location I've never seen before, and come out with all my limbs, could I do it? And I think it's overcoming that fear that people love.
Yeah, you see, I think I'm just going to put it out there now. I think I would be rubbish in this situation. I think I don't think I'd be very self-sufficient. I think I'd be one of the people that would just hide and hope that everything would sort of go back to normal. But
yeah,
I mean,
you wouldn't be alone with that.
No,
tactic. Yeah.
That's good. Just take some chocolate biscuits in the cupboard under the stairs and just wait for it to all go over. But I mean, we sort of saw films like 28 Days Later is the one that springs to mind for me. That film was terrifying beyond belief because in my weird psyche I believe that something like that could happen because it's not that far removed. It's not like a typical horror film where you've got things coming up from the ground and chasing you. It almost seemed so real. And
Yes.
where is the obsession with zombies and the end of the world and apocalyptic things? Where does that come from, do you think?
Well, you've hit on a bit of a touchy subject with 28 Days Later because it's a
Ooh.
constant battle because technically they're not zombies.
No.
It's a virus. But I think going to your question, I think the relation that we have with zombies is a unique one because they take human form. So there's something very familiar about a zombie, and it's almost like, you can see yourself in that other person. I think that's the key sort of the reason why the genre sticks out as opposed to other types of things like werewolves or things like that. There's a bit more fantasy based. So I think it's that relatability to the zombie look. With regards to the apocalypse, again, I just think it's about the human race always trying to better themselves. We go through life and we go through struggle, and I think the apocalypse is the ultimate struggle, right? I mean, no
Yeah.
food, no shelter, danger around every corner. If we hark back to our instincts as animals, it's a true test of survival of the fittest, I guess.
Yeah, and Greg, what are your top survival tips for us? For someone like me, who's clearly a little bit of a weakling when it comes to things like this, what should I be able to learn about top survival tips?
I think one of the things that people always forget about is, and I think The Walking Dead, the series, obviously brought this to the forefront, is you have to get on with people that you don't like. We used to do a 6 hour overnight survival event in a forest, Sherwood Forest. So it used to be late night, overnight in a forest. And people normally turn up to our events in groups of maybe 2 to 6. And when they came, we split them up and we put them with strangers. And it was the biggest thing that they struggled with, was working with people that they'd never worked with before. Um, so number one would definitely be like, be prepared to work with others if you want to survive. And then you've got your cliche, so food, shelter, something to defend yourself with, priority. So those types of things.
Okay.
Power, I always find,
Yes.
people forget about power. So I would go for batteries and things that can sustain their own their own energy, as important as well.
Okay, now you're due to launch a zombie survival course in May. That sort of shows how popular these sorts of things are, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we run our events every weekend of the year, or did before obviously the lockdown. So we place about 7 to 8 thousand people a year in one of our scenarios across the country. Each of them unique. But we've decided to launch this. The concept of a sort of a training scenario isn't particularly new, but we just felt like it might be the right time for people to really understand what it is that we do, and how we bring that to the stage. So the Zombie Training Academy that we're going to launch in May is almost like a, a qualification course, if you like, in survival techniques, but also understanding your enemy. So half the day is learning about surviving and using different types of weaponry, and then the other half of the day is actually becoming a zombie. So we're going to teach you how your enemy thinks, how you walk, how you talk, and how you look like a zombie, to bring that together. So it should be fun.
Okay, and on a sort of really serious note, you're obviously an events company, and things
Yes.
for you. The last year must have just been soul destroying for you.
Yes, absolutely devastating. I think the scare industry, we're one of those rare event companies in the scare industry that run all year round. Normally, you get our types of events sort of pop up around Halloween. But for us specifically, that run all year round, the scare industry is kind of forgotten a little bit. We talk a lot about festivals and these big high profile, and the West End and all these big high profile theatre companies, but actually the scare industry makes up a lot of the theatre income at the end of the year around Halloween. It's massive and it gets bigger year on year. And this year's just been incredibly difficult for all of those scare actors and scare industry professionals that have had to take a step back. And I think it was bad timing because we were kind of on the brink of coming back and potentially allowing these types of events to come. So we sort of had it really hard getting prepared for October and that scenario. And we're still here, we're still battling on. We're our staff are still motivated. We can't wait to get back to scaring. Just our thoughts go out to all of the scare industry professionals because it's been extremely difficult.
I'll tell you what, Greg, when things are back to some sort of normality and you start doing your events, please let me come out on one of your zombie events. I will be
Absolutely.
but I'll be the worst person. You do know that. I will be the one that's like screaming and cowering and crying in the corner. But I like you said, it's almost that thing. You just want to scare yourself. You just want to be able to
Oh,
say that I've done
yeah.
it.
I've been doing it a long time, and I actually did it as a customer originally. So I did it as a customer way back, in an abandoned shopping mall in Reading, which I later took over, which was great. But I did it as a customer, and throughout the years, the amount of people that I've heard say, "Oh no, it's not for me. I can't do it. I'm going to be scared. I'll hire in the corner," and by the end of it, they're Rambo. It, it I I can't, I've lost count. It's really something that I think surprises a lot of people. when they go, they're scared to put an imitation weapon in their hand and throw them into the mix, and they're loving it.
Oh, Greg,
15 minutes in.
Do you know what, Greg? You've totally sold it to me. And I tell you what, when you start back, I promise I will come out on one of your events. I'll do some recording as well. All you'll hear is me screaming. And then by the end of it, I'll be like this, like She-Ra sort of character.
You will, you'll have a bandana on.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, Greg, a huge thank you and best of luck to you and the rest of the guys. That's Greg Rudman from events company Zombie Infection, which holds zombie events across the country. And I've said it, I'm going to do it as soon as they're back up and running. As soon as this is all over, I am going to go out on a zombie night out. And I am going to be the weakling that screams my way through it, who goes through adversity and comes out the other end as leader of the pack. That may not be strictly true. We'll see how it goes. It sounds really good fun.